Nowadays, for most people, it's not realistic anymore to just raw dog your code in Vim, which is why you need a collection of personalized tools that you use every day to speed up your development process. And in this video, I just want to quickly show you what tools I've been using lately, and for you to see whether they are useful or not. And who knows, you might be adopting one or two tools I'm using myself into your own workflow. And that's basically the goal of this video. Let's start with the arguably most important thing when it comes to web development, which is the browser. I actually use one that is quite hated nowadays in the community, but it's called Arc. Now, whether you have a good experience or not with this browser is kind of luck, but for me personally, it's been working quite fine, and there's nothing wrong with it really. Also, I just can't get rid of the vertical tabs. Now, I know that other browsers such as Zen browser, for example, do have vertical tabs as well. The issue with them is they don't have folders, and that's unfortunately a no-no for me. I've gotten way too used to these folders and they are way too useful. And yes, they have basically stopped development on the browser, but I think it's more or less perfect. If you ask me right now what more features I'd want, really I couldn't say anything. Maybe add like an AI chat bar, but I couldn't really wish for more than that. Now they are developing a new browser called Dia, but I'm not a fan of this at all. Yes, it looks good, but come on, where are the vertical tabs? Like, you got us addicted to vertical tabs. Why are you removing them all of a sudden now? But yeah, you shouldn't really worry about it too much. The next thing that I use on a day-to-day basis is my terminal, and the terminal that I'm using is called Ghosty. Now, Ghosty is a fast, feature-rich, and cross-platform terminal emulator that uses platform-native UI and GPU acceleration. Now, forget all that mumbo-jumbo and let's hop straight into the documentation, or actually the GitHub. Now, you'll see this has 30,000 stars, which is a lot, and that it's written in Zig. I've never really used a project written in Zig before, so having this as my first impression of this language is quite cool. And trust me, this is probably the best terminal that exists out there right now. So let's go ahead and hop inside of it. So this is basically how it looks like. And then to configure it, you can do command comma. It'll open up this little window here. You can set a theme and you can add custom key bindings just using this syntax. And if you go into the documentation, you'll see all the things that you need in the configuration section. For example, you can change the color background, you can change the foreground, which is the text. You can do a lot with this terminal. But by far, my favorite feature of this terminal is not really a feature, but more of a property. It's so insanely fast. Compared to something like iTerm or the native terminal for macOS even. They're so slow once they started using Ghosty. Well, objectively speaking, they're not really slow, they're actually very fast. But Ghosty is just so much faster and it just takes performance to a whole new level. There is one issue that I've been facing quite consistently though. If you work with a lot of SSH, I actually do not recommend using this terminal because it will drive you insane if you don't know the solution. Let's say I want to SSH into my Hetzner VPS. I cannot clear the command output. This is the error that I receive. Now, obviously, you can hack your way around this, as I read in this issue here, by putting this into your Ghosty config, but this is just dancing around the problem. You're basically identifying as iTerm and not Ghosty itself, which honestly, who cares? But as this guy said, it's not really zero config if you work with a lot of SSH. And also a lot of developers use SSH, so I don't really understand the claim of zero config, which they claim to be, but it's really not that deep. You should just move on from this issue if it bothers you that much. And the next thing that I use every day, literally every day, like maybe 100 times throughout the entire day, is Raycast. Now, Raycast is basically like a launch center, but it's much more than that. For example, we can ask it something using AI. Hello. And it'll respond. Now, if you like this kind of system-wide interaction with AI, go ahead and use it. Personally, I use my own tool that I developed called Shiori.ai, and the cool thing about it is you don't only have AI chat, but as you can see here, it replaces ChatGPT, it replaces Stable Diffusion, and it replaces a whole bunch of other platforms, for example, Midjourney as well. And it's also kind of cheap for what it does. So yeah, go sign up. Back to Raycast. The thing that I use it most for actually is its shortcut feature. So if you go ahead and go into the settings, go to extensions, you can see all the installed extensions. Now if you go have a look at Arc, I actually have a key binding set for Arc. So if I press Command Shift 1, it redirects me to Arc. And this is just an amazing feature to have, especially because we're developers and we switch between a lot of windows. And this is what I use it most for actually. The next thing is Setab. Now Setab isn't really a tool in itself. It's more like a collection of tools. If we go ahead and open it up, you can see you can download a bunch of tools here and it's all in one subscription. So the makers of these apps come here into Setab and say, we're going to let your users use our product. You just give us the majority of the fee that you make from those subscriptions. And this has proven to be quite a good business model, let's say. And if you come over to my apps, you can see all the ones that I have installed here. Now this, I absolutely love this. You can just listen to lo-fi by pressing a key binding. In my case, it's Control Command L, and lo-fi should turn on. I don't think you're hearing it because I have it disabled in OBS, but yeah, I can hear it. And here we can also see other tools I'm using. For example, CleanShot X. Now the default macOS screenshot feature is okay, but it doesn't offer a lot of functionality. Now let me show you how you can use it. Now you can set up custom key bindings or press the screenshot key binding on your keyboard, but I have a shortcut for it called Command-Shift-3. And the cool thing about this is it offers a lot of features that you may want to do to your screenshots. So let's say I want to take a screenshot of this page right here. I would press Command-Shift-4, I would select the area that I want to screenshot, and then I can double click on this file, or image rather, and then I can do stuff to it. So let's say I want to encircle something. Boom, easy. Revert, Control X. Then I can underscore something, which looks ugly. And by far the coolest thing is you can blur out text. How cool is this? And this actually looks kind of professional. Like I wouldn't be able to tell if you did this in Photoshop or in CleanShot X, which again is a screenshotting software. And then you can just come over here, click done, then copy, and it's copied. Now let's get to the most important tool I use every day, which is obviously my IDE. And the IDE that I use is called Cursor. And the way that I usually open it is just by pressing the shortcut, which I set through Acast, but I'm actually going to show you as well how I do it through Ghosty. So basically, I just have a bunch of aliases set up. And if I want to launch a program, I just type cu, which stands for cursor, dot, for the current directory. Actually, we'll not choose the current directory. Let's go into Shiori. Now cu dot. And it will open Cursor for me in that specific directory. And this is basically my entire Shiori codebase. And as you can see, I don't think anyone is going to copy this, but if you want to, feel free to. But yeah, it's quite a complex code base. Then again, I have a lot of aliases set up. So for example, instead of writing .dev, sometimes I just do dd, which then starts my development server, and I can open Arc, go to my website here, or localhost. Then I'll take a time to load, and there we go. Now it should redirect me to the dashboard, but it's still compiling, I think. Yep. I'm using TurboPack, and as you can see, it's quite a big code base. I would urge you to explore it yourself, but just to quickly show you something that I can do, basically I could just click on a conversation, and then I have a conversation here. Just write a story about a robot, it asks me for stuff. Then you can branch conversations, which is actually a feature that I recently added. As you can see, it created a clone of it, not the exact same one, and then you can continue your conversation here. For example, say something like, summarize our conversation. Again, this will take the time to load because it's compiling again. And we have the answer here. And it's actually insane how fast Shiori is. So, Cursor. I am using the theme Tokyo Nightlight, but I also like to use Cappuccino Latte. They're very similar, but kind of like this one more actually. And recently I've been using a lot of Gemini 2.5 Pro, this model right here, just because of this sheer context size and the size of this entire code base. But I do have to say 3.7 Sonnet is still the king, honestly. Now these max requests are very expensive. Like, I don't know why people use them. I kind of get it, but I just haven't really seen that much of an improvement to the normal 3.7 Sonnet. So I think it's just a total waste of money, honestly. Now the way I track my to-dos is, as you can see, using a todo.md file, which I've started doing recently actually. I always used to do Notion before, but I recently learned about this concept called plansturbation, which is basically just wasting time planning stuff without ever executing. So you should try to avoid plansturbating as much as possible and try to keep it simple. Now the last thing that I think is worth mentioning to you is something called Lookaway. Now Lookaway is actually a very handy program for your eyes. Now it's detecting that I'm in a meeting or on a call right now, so it's not showing the entire widget thing, or maybe I can just skip. Lookaway is paused. Okay, so it was this setting, it turns out. Screen recording or sharing, you just have to turn this off. So if this pops up anytime now, perfect. This is actually the signal to stand up, but there's also one to blink, which will heal your eyes from all this insane overstimulation over time. I actually noticed a difference very quickly. Like, it sounds like a silly concept, trust me. I thought like that in the beginning as well, but I've actually started noticing a huge difference. There we go. Go ahead and blink with me. Nice. Yeah, this pretty much sums up all the tools that I've been using lately and which ones are completely essential to the way I work. Now, my favorite tool is obviously Cursor, just because I spend the most time in it, but I'd say next is probably Arc. But yeah, that's pretty much the video. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the sub button, and share it with your friends, and until next time.